We got targeted going webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, people's frontal slab of choice. I don't know that word. Doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't. It's hard to get real these days. Because seriously, they don't want you to just read these two sources whenever I try to prove out one of these. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to sadly disappoint another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty old man, huh?
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions? Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2. Within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America, we bring you the Ochelli Effect.
It's like, damn sure, no, I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for...
That's that.
For a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
I did a whole introduction that you guys did not hear. So, hooray, hooray. Let's just see if we can add in my guests in progress, because I'm trying to simulcast right now with Dylan. And let's see what happens. A little sloppy. Sorry, people. Doing what I can. Let's see what happens. And looks like it could be a monumental failure on my part. Wonderful, wonderful. The Ochelli Effect on UCY.TV radio. And, of course, we are live. This is why this is all fun. So let's see what happens when we try. Okay, disaster continues. I can't seem to bring them into the call, so not much I can do. Alrighty then. So, the Ochelli Effect on Saturday night. Good evening, everybody, once more.
We are definitely looking at the strangeness of trying to join multiple individuals into this broadcast, and it's just not quite working. So we might just have a busted situation, and that's that. Okay, now moving forward. Let's see what I can do here. Nope, okay. All right, so that's a massive failure, and I'm just going to leave it there because there's no point in wasting a half hour trying to connect something if it can't be connected. That's all fine and dandy. Anyhow, back to where I was. Let's see what's been going on. Well, of course, I had a totally other plan going on tonight. I was going to sit and discuss the connection between GMOs and chemtrails, and of course the vaccinations, the entire sort of chemical warfare process, and how it relates to perpetual warfare and the continuation of the feeding of the monster, which is, of course, the military-industrial complex. Well, as I said, I did have a small panel of people that were going to join me on that call, but that is apparently not going to happen. So, let's see. We had, of course, this whole situation exploding again in St. Louis, which I know I brought up on a previous show, but I got to tell you that, it looks like more of the same again. Of course, we're dealing with the racial divide as usual. And of course the overzealous and militarized police officers, because there are two different camps as far as I'm concerned, the overzealous and the overmilitarized, or actually the militarized, let's put it there. And there's not much to it out there except that we're looking at yet another debacle where we have, unrest and all this other stuff. And that means that it's absolutely rife for the agent provocateurs and such to join in the fray. To make the complete mess out of things, and to continue stoking the flames, as it were. And of course, I need a drink because I was back and forth with other things. Now, you know what else I saw, which I found rather interesting, and of course leads me into a topic which I've held sort of close to my chest, and I did want certain guests on to discuss it, but apparently that's not going to be something that I get on my wish list either. Although don't worry, it won't be all non-guests from now on the Ochelli Effect. You're definitely going to see some more new guests, some interesting people, and some returns of those that you've heard before. All across the time that I've been doing this, but. Let me just say that I found it interesting. Of course, I recently referenced the fact that I was once again taking a look at these so-called, right-wing media, as it were, and of course had to spend a little bit of time glancing over the stuff that they're doing over the Glenn Beck mess. And I happened to catch this Dana Lash over there, who is, not really all that fascinating, to most people, because obviously you'd sort of pass her by as yet another one of these, Rush Limbaugh types, except, of course, you put it in a slightly more, or actually massively more attractive body, than the Sean Hannitys of the world, and et cetera, et cetera. But of course, she actually did have an interesting topic. I don't know exactly what day it was because I just get the video pieces or whatever. I don't have time to keep track of this stuff live, and of course I don't really watch television, so it's a little difficult for me to keep track of, but she is on radio and TV and all that. The topic, though, that caught my attention was all about the sexuality of these kids in one of these particular states where they were having this controversy over the use of bathrooms because of gender. So they were calling the what I would refer to as the typical or the normal people. They were saying that we were now the cisgender, and that they, as transgendered individuals, even at the point of declaring that they are transgendered, also have the right to use whatever gender assigned bathroom they wish, and all this kind of stuff. And I thought this brings up a very interesting thought in my mind, which is, if you've been following the chemical attacks on sexuality that have been going on for the many, many decades now, and you understand that, the leaching of chemicals like BPA and other sort of tampering that's been done through the genetically modified organisms and on out there, you can sort of see that there is an agenda, obviously, to sort of chemically neuter and castrate the male populace, as it were, and in my opinion, also to hypersexualize or to oversexualize the female segment of the population. Now, I know this is going to sound rather bizarre and almost unevolved, but really don't care. It is what it is. See, to me, and I don't know, maybe this is one of those points I got to stop and say, I guess I'm crazy. I guess the world has already passed me by, and now I definitely am one of those old men standing there waving his cane and screaming at the kids on his grass because I just haven't caught up with the times regarding this whole acceptance of this as normal. Now, I don't take the moral stance and freak out because I'm repulsed or repelled or believe that anybody should be dictated to about their sexuality in any way, shape, or form. But what I do see is a promotion of this sort of blurring of the lines between the sexes, and once again, a tampering with the nature of the human species. Now, this does not mean that I find that individuals who are, definitely, in my opinion, victims of this are in any way evil or whatever, but they are becoming more and more encouraged to embrace what has been unnaturally done to them in a chemical fashion, in a social fashion, on and on. And it does seem to me as though, and this is all my commentary, my observation, because, again, I had something else prepared. And so now you just get me rambling for 2 hours, unless somebody wants to jump in. And if you're on my Skype list, feel free to do so. But the fact is that, let's see, where are we at? Oh, I do have phones up, by the way. So 718-717-8296, and you can join right on in with my ramblings and yell at me for not being an evolved person and all that kind of good stuff if you feel like it. But anyway, back to where I was. The idea that, that this is somehow, a perversion or an evil and all that, that's not the bandwagon I'm jumping on here, folks. And it's definitely never been the bandwagon that I've been on as an adult. But the reality is that if you can conceptualize the idea, if you can forget conceptualize, bad word, if you can internalize the idea for yourself that there has been a challenge to the natural way of things, if you understand that there's been a tampering with regarding our food supply, regarding the fluoridation, regarding our intellects and everything else, and people have been targeted. I don't know why this is such a horrible topic for a lot of people to cover or to even discuss. It's almost like it's impolite to even discuss the possibilities regarding this. So anyway, as I see it, and this again is just as I see it without backing it up with any sort of documentation or anything else, this is just a long commentary. Quite factually, things occur in nature because they serve a purpose. Those that end up with an urge or a seemingly natural urge to have their sexuality turned towards something which is counterproductive, regarding reproduction, even in the possibility, of course, people say, well, what about in the case where people are older and they're obviously not going to reproduce, and etc. That's kind of pointless because the natural urge and instinct is still there. There are people out there that fight their natural urge to eat. There are people out there that fight their natural urges to do many things, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily healthy. Now, I'm not saying again that this is the motive of the individual, but the fact to me that it seems, well, see, the fact that it seems, how ridiculous is that statement right there? Let me slow my roll. Look, when you're looking at the idea that, that there has been this increase in the population and the percentage of those that identify themselves as homosexual, as transgendered, et cetera, et cetera. It does seem to correlate quite directly with the ramping up of the biochemical stuff. It does seem to, correlate quite correctly again to the social engineering, social programming, which has gone on, and the overabundance, let's just say, of tolerance regarding a lot of this stuff. Now, again, I don't feel as though I or anybody else has a need to make a statement about the way someone chooses to behave or anything else. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the nature of the individual having been sort of turned on its head, having been turned against its own natural purpose. Your fight or flight mechanisms in your brain have a natural purpose. They don't necessarily always serve you correctly if the input going into the individual has been damaged in some way, if it has been altered in some way, if there's been a chemical, inducement of different conditions in the brain, you have different reactions to something that was quite natural to begin with. So this is sort of how I see this increase in the population regarding this. Now, again, I know it seems very intolerant, and a lot of people get angry at it. I even have one person who's very close to me that gets extremely angry at me about this because they feel as though I am attaching myself to that old sort of, the Judeo-Christian sort of mantra that always was, and the very hardline Christian mantra that exists still, where, basically it says in the Bible that this is an improper thing to do, and therefore that's a problem for me. Well, this is not my problem. I don't adhere to any of this type of dogmatic belief. And it just seems to me as though, from an objective point of view, that again, it's our own nature being turned against us. And again, this is in two parts. There's been a social manipulation of males to sort of change them up, to extract, semi-violent behavior, which I think came natural to little boys, things like this. There's been, a change, a shift in the power structure socially, and, especially, the core family values and all that kind of nonsense, which people in a very shallow way, especially in the left-right paradigm, enjoy seizing upon. But this doesn't mean that it's completely without merit, that a family structure is not better served by a male and a female character, that two parents are not optimal, in the family situation when it comes to raising children, et cetera, et cetera. Now, why do I say this? Not because women are simply the baby making machines or anything like that. This is not my idea, obviously. The point, as far as I'm concerned, is that the male and the female are the bookends to the absolute necessities and beauties of the power that is contained within the human being. Women have a great many skills that have virtually nothing to do with child rearing, etc., that men do not have, and I think vice versa is also correct. And this, of course, is a generalized statement. But obviously there are, women that do possess some of these more manly qualities, in my opinion, and there are men who possess, a great deal more of these sort of feminine qualities, in my opinion. But this doesn't mean that this is the typical set. Typically, men and women do share this responsibility and this, like I say, this presence as the human species, and are equally as important. The world does not run without either side of this, and I think that socially, to destabilize us as a population, I think this has also been part of the equation, is to make sure that we do not embrace our natural gifts, that we don't embrace our natural tendencies to be certain ways. And, some of those things, although they have become, like I say, politically incorrect and, excessively scorned by the social wisdom of the time, they are they are valid things and they are valid parts of the growing process, though the growing process is not something which is safe and without its pitfalls and scary places and things. And this does bring to mind, of course, every time I see a story from New Jersey, I do get my head around it a little bit and try to imagine what's going on, even though I've extracted myself from that high tension power line area, and that of course has multiple meanings. The idea here, well, anyway, back to the story. We had the Sayreville football team and all this, which is apparently now having its season canceled over locker room things that went on, which apparently are extremely vile, and all that. Now, there is an unspoken thing that goes on here regarding this, saying that, look, it's a violent sport. There's a culture of violence, and therefore, what do you expect but animalistic behavior, et cetera, because these guys are accused of, doing some pretty vicious things, apparently. One news report I saw, talked about actually, some kids being sexually violated and all kinds of things. Of course, we don't know the full story yet, and doubt that we ever will. For those of you not familiar with a town like Sayreville, this is one of those places that, a John Bon Jovi, who I have absolutely no respect for, claims as his hometown, but it's in about the middle of the state. It's fairly suburban, but has gone through its artsy periods regarding its development. And, it's really generally not a rough area, not a particularly, super rich area, although there are some rather nice places in that area and all that. Decent place to be, generally speaking, but nothing really special. I mean, it is a sort of, a snapshot of what modern America is probably dealing with at this point in time. But nevertheless, apparently now this causes a lot of newscasters to seize upon the concept of debating, the violence and the content and what goes on regarding football, because football, after all, is a big evil. And in this sense, I don't agree, but of course, I think football is just yet again another one of those wonderfully pushed things that has, led people to be distracted, be dissuaded from actually looking at real things and actually emotionally engaging in the realities of the world and getting upset about things that they should get upset about because they're, the male population, which is rather immature in my opinion, just in general, seems to have this need to participate in some sort of tribalism. So you have this artificial tribalism, which is sort of promoted by way of, which team do you follow? Who is it that you believe in? Do you know all of the heroes of your particular tribe, et cetera, et cetera? And I've been guilty of being a somewhat active sports fan at one point or another, because as I've stated many, many times, it's only in the past few years that I've become aware of exactly what's going on here. But anybody who can tell me that it's anything other than a well-crafted and gender-specific sort of destructive distraction to make sure that you're not paying attention to, the evil things being done by those who are in power, but you will pay attention to the highlight reels, the hits, the stats, your fantasy team, and everything else. Because after all, why utilize any of those types of skills to do anything productive other than, try and beat your friend at picking other people to participate in physical activities while you do none, and, all that kind of good stuff. Now, it seems as though I've gotten off topic, but my point is that they talk about the culture of violence, and now what they're going to do, I would think, is push for an increase of sensitivity in the game, just as they have with this, we have introduced the bullying thing in recent years. There is a need for the breast cancer awareness, and these guys wearing pink and everything else, which, I have nothing against breast cancer awareness, obviously, but does it really belong on the gridiron? Does that make any sort of sense to you other than as a prop? And if I were somebody who cared about an issue like that, I would actually be a little insulted that the NFL makes this, this half-assed gesture regarding, a very serious illness and on and on. But then again, another little sip. It's all about the promotional gear, and it's all about the way of continuing on the narratives required to prop up the false tribalism. So anyway, these kids in Sayreville apparently had their whole season canceled. As I said, I think I did say that, and like I said, it's leading into some interesting debates, I guess, to those who are not of the alternative stream, because to me it's just yet again another monster waste of time. Just like all of a sudden picking out a bunch of domestic situations to highlight, regarding this situation. I mean, athletes and being involved in domestic situations, this is about as unusual as a sunny day. And but realistically, I mean, percentage-wise, most of the time these guys don't get caught anyway, because anybody who has money or seems to have some sort of juice when it comes to the pop culture doesn't really get punished to the extent of the law they should. Of course, we know that, but at the same time, there is a different sort of aspect to this, which okay, when you have the well, let's put it this way. There's not more males percentage-wise getting themselves in trouble that happen to be professional athletes regarding any of this stuff. Even when the news cycle turns around and gives you a whole lot of, sexually inappropriate things, or they decide to give you a whole lot of, dogfighting stories or whatever else. People behaving badly is just people behaving badly. And it's really kind of irrelevant as to whether they're football players or not. And percentage-wise, I would say that actually the occurrence of this is lower than it is in the greater population anyway, any of this stuff. I mean, and that is whether we're talking about, spousal abuse or, the dogfighting thing, a la, Michael Vick and all that kind of good stuff, which, now he gets to play in the old area where I used to live. But anyway, that stuff, the whole child abuse thing, which has come up now, which, of course, spawned the, should we spank or shouldn't we spank debate for, I don't know, about 36 hours in the mainstream, I guess, which I'm even surprised it lasted that long because of the attention span of their average viewer, listener, etc. But all they are is a mechanism to again create, sort of vicarious issues that although they do affect us, it gives us a forum to debate them and toss them away, because after all, at the end of the day, there's no reason to get involved with anything. We can just live vicariously through all these characters on television, whether they're wearing football helmets or they happen to be wearing makeup. Maybe they're your favorite vampire or other creature or whatever else. Although I do have to say that, in recent times, there's actually a couple of TV shows that I might actually have to take a look at online to catch up to some of that predetermination in the psych warfare out there, some of that premeditated mind control that I'm sure is probably being produced as we speak and being aired and blasted to most of the people that consume it as they do other junk food in their lives. Well, anyway, back to the sexuality issue, which is where I started. And of course, I do ramble on stream of conscious style all the time, but usually I have something to break it up with, and instead you're confronted with just me tonight. Back to the sexuality issue. It seems as though to me that the increase in the population of individuals that identify themselves as anything other than heterosexual, like I said, does coincide with all this other stuff. I think that it's again the creation of a need for a false tolerance, a false sensitivity, And how has it affected the later generations? They see it as almost a non-issue, but then again, they also see a great many choices during parts of points of confusion in their lives. And again, I just don't see it as a positive thing to support it as something that is just would occur in nature without any of our tampering and et cetera, et cetera. Cancer occurs in nature too. So does intelligence, but to sit there and say purposely screw around with ratcheting up people's IQs could create a lot of dangerous consequences either. And I often think to myself, when is it that the lesson is going to be understood by those who do these things, that tampering with human beings doesn't lead to anything other than the destruction of the species? But of course, whenever I say something like that, it's always pointed out to me that that is precisely what the agenda is, so I should not be surprised in any way, shape, or form. Now, the way that this all plays out to me in the mainstream, like I said, I mean, now you even got, I saw some clip go by of Jeffrey Tambor, of all people, is involved in one of these transgender, very, very highly politically correct kind of television shows. Once a comedian starts cross-dressing, I mean, it starts getting weird, right? I mean, unless it is that's what they wanted to do in the first place, and they were just looking for a good place to do it. They were looking for a convenient excuse, right? Kind of surprised nobody wants to stop me on this rambling roll and call in, but okay, we'll keep going. And as I'm sure the mic is probably picking up my son screaming in the other room. It's been a wonderful day, and I had no time to prepare. I was actually literally just coming on to the computer around the time that my bumper was rolling anyway. So, hooray for me! I've got 0. So these are just my random thoughts. Oh, and the Kim Jong-il thing. Funny how I have to bring that up during cross-dressing, but that's a personal theory of mine. I can't support it at the moment, so I won't discuss it. The thing is that they're ratcheting that up as something that's going to be a big deal. I figure that this is yet another one of these non-issue distractions. I do also have to note that there is not much of a shift in the Ebola thing. It's kind of going exactly as I figured it would. We have probably a whole lot of nothing, except, of course, the wonderful seizing upon the culture of victimization deal, where we have people talking about medical care and how it might have not been fair and everything else. Regarding the patient 0 that died and all of that kind of good stuff. But anyway, let's see, I'm being messaged again. Yeah, call in if you want to. Don't even bother to wait. Call right in, jump in with whatever you want. It's fine by me. So the thing is, I started out with the sexuality discussion, obviously, and I think I've laid that out pretty well. It seems to me as though, like I said, it's yet another one of the manipulations, but it's working very well. And just like with the racial, divide and conquer thing, it's truly a non-issue. As far as I'm concerned, because we need to just be able to be the human beings that we were intended to be the creatures that we were born to be ourselves, and to evolve according to our own schedules, to develop according to our own schedules. And this, obviously is in the social realm, is in the physical realm. I mean, if you choose to actually, be destructive to yourself, and of course, I'm not saying necessarily that atypical sexuality is something that's directly destructive to oneself. Of course, the obvious is the obvious. I mean, if everybody was gay, how would we ever reproduce? But But besides that, personal choice and personal freedom is something that I take very seriously, and whether I agree with it or not doesn't mean that that I would ever preclude or discourage somebody from doing anything that didn't harm others, that they enjoyed. I guess recently I've had to embrace the idea that I'm a little more of an anarchist than I thought I was, because I really do have these sort of, we need to govern ourselves. We need to, essentially be the grown human beings that we are, and stop turning to, the big daddy government, or no, I like my uncle better, or I'd like to get a new guy in here to marry my mom so that he can be in charge. This is not working, folks. So to me, it seems as though, responsible society could sort itself out if we all were able to embrace that. So as much as I love the concept of the country that I was born in, my way works there too, because essentially all of those wonderful rights and laws that we started out with, especially, when it comes to the Constitution, well, hey, if you're basically living and let living and trying to take care of your own, by default, you wouldn't exactly have a big problem with the Constitution or your basic sort of set of laws, would you? It's only about, dispute resolution and things like that at that point, in which case, how badly are we going to split hairs? But regardless of all that, that's my emotional reaction to it. I mean, I have a more realistic sense of how things are going to develop. But and I look at this whole sort of culture of diversity that has been thrust upon us at this point in time, has been thrust upon the culture. I do look at it as a negative, but it's not like an individual negative. It's not like when the murder rate goes up in your town, it's because you have more bad people. I really do think of it as a cultural thing that has been instituted, supported, and absolutely reinforced over and over again with wonderful vaccine-like booster shots constantly, and of course always making sure that you can, absolutely crucify anybody that is not completely sensitive to all things at all times, right? Being racially insensitive has now become a crime that can easily cost you millions and millions of dollars, regardless of what you've done over the decades. And being, somehow or other, problematic, regarding anybody's sort of, especially the liberal concepts of things, they are very quick to say that you're no longer deserving of making a living. You're no longer deserving of whatever it is you've earned. And you could simply make one comment in private, to some girl that you were sleeping with, like that one basketball owner did. And I'm not even saying that the guy wasn't probably despicable or senile or whatever, but to have the majority, or not the majority, but to have a very vocal and significant segment of the population pound on this guy as they did, and to pound on so many others as they do, anytime somebody steps out of the line, and to watch how the sensitivity is rising, the number of individuals that you're not allowed to criticize or talk about or whatever else is rising. Who knows how big those landmines are going to get or where they're going to be next. I did find it funny that now, there is this possibility out there that they're going to start calling your heterosexual people the cisgender, which, I really should have researched exactly what that means. And I even saw a clip of South Park go by, because I love my cartoons, as anybody who normally listens to me knows. I'm sure I put everybody to sleep who listens to me normally by now. But the thing is that, there's a South Park episode now coming out where, of course, Cartman, who is probably one of the most, ignorant and twisted cartoon characters out there, but rather quietly, he's not matricidal like Stewie or anything like that, just sort of very, very quietly still out there being completely, insanely over the top, hateful and combative of the entire world around him. For those of you who don't know, I mean, he's tried to rally, people that enjoyed the Passion of the Christ to go out and exterminate the Jews and everything. So, awfully interesting character. At one point, just to kind of feed into the maniacal side of things, there was an episode where he actually had a kid's parents get killed somehow or other, and then turned around and fed the kid's parents back to him in a chili, which I found rather hysterical. Of course, it's a cartoon, which I found rather hysterical because because all of this started over the fact that he had sort of cheated him out of money by selling him his pubic hair, and of course Cartman runs around being proud about it. I don't need to tell you the whole episode. Point is that it's a completely like theater of the absurd kind of ludicrous cartoon, and it's enjoyable to sort of take a break from your psychosis that you can sort of enter if you're really studying a lot of the news and analyzing things that are going on and looking at really vile historical events and figures and things like that. Every once in a while, you got to take some sort of break. And I don't have a heavy bag hung up at my house anymore. So blowing off steam mentally for me is my cartoons. But at any rate, apparently this character, who is exactly the guy who should never be in a minority. Oh, another thing. That's right. That was a good one too. The ginger kid thing. I love that because, and thanks for that reminder. The ginger kid thing. He, Paul reminded me of this on my Skype message. You can call in, Paul, if you want. The thing is that the ginger episode. Let me think here. Oh, right. Okay. So he goes to do a presentation in his classroom, and he explains how kids with extremely pale, what a ginger kid is. I'm sure everybody does, but kids with extremely pale skin and red hair and all that kind of stuff and freckles, they're actually evil. They possess no soul, and he makes an argument that ginger kids should be wiped out. So his friends turn around and sneak into his room at night and make him look like a ginger kid. And he wakes up, the next day. And of course, they say that ginger kids suffer from a disease called gingivitis, which cracked me up. But because as we all know, it's gum disease, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So of course, he creates a whole like ginger kids pride thing, and now flips it around because he's become a ginger kid. He doesn't know that his friends did this to him. He becomes a ginger kid, so now he decides that all non-ginger kids need to be wiped out. So this speaks to the character's character, if you will. And of course, as I said in this little clip I saw, he's sitting there wearing like something in his hair that I think, is meant to symbolize a masculine symbol in his hair, and also a bow. So he's obviously declaring himself transgender, which now, by the way, by definition, that's one of the things too, is you don't actually have to go through the hormone therapy and go get all that surgery where you become altered, to put it politely. So you don't go through all that even necessarily in the hormones and the whatever else, cross-dressing for a little while and going through your psychological evaluation before they do this irreversible stuff to you. No, we don't do that anymore. You don't even need to do that anymore to be declared a transgender person. All you have to do is essentially say that you are. Which leads to a hell of a lot of interesting chicanery that can come out of that, right? Because after all, okay, and let's just go with this for a minute. And I'm sad to say that I think one of the lesser known sort of conservative talk show guys even brought this up, which turns out to be sensible. And I hate to say that about any of them, but yeah, well, hey, Hector, if you want to join in, you can join in too. That's fine. Anybody wants to, it's fine. Hit me on the Skype or call in the number. I have the phones. So whatever you want to do, guys, it's fine by me. But the interesting thing to me is that there only has to be the declaration now in some states. Yes, Hector, that's right. In some states there has to be a declaration. In some other states it's different, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is the, oh God, I hate to borrow this term as well, the slippery slope. So anyway, like I was saying, one of the better points that that was made about this by one of the conservative talk show guys was that listen, let's just say you're a prepubescent or an adolescent boy, and you decide that you really just want to get some access to the girls' locker room or whatever else, and you are heterosexual, truly, but you declare yourself transgendered, so that this way, you should be able to go both ways, right? Or whatever, depending on the scenario. Obviously, this gets really muddy, but how about that possibility? Would that be okay with everybody too? Because obviously we can't take the chance of leaving somebody out that honestly is transgendered in one way or another. So, Hector, you wanted to say something about this, man?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of duality and mixtures of this that I've seen and how it's been used. So some people use it to try to get away with some stuff like that, but it's just used and it just, let's just say certain paradigms just use it to poke at it, and others just use it for photo shoots and just throw it at the side, and leaving the real people on that are really the type.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not saying that there isn't legitimately some people that probably, have...
There is legitimacy, but I'm just saying what ends up happening on all out of everything else. But
yeah, but see, I get yelled at all the time, and I've never talked about this on the air much, but I mean, people from all sides of the political spectrum get really uncomfortable when you turn around and you say stuff like, well, it seems to me as though it's increasing in the population. I get smacked by the more liberal thinkers that say, well, that's because, we are socially getting better as people and we're getting more tolerant, so people aren't afraid like they used to be.
You mind if I throw a little laugh with that hypocriticalness in itself?
Oh, go right ahead.
Yes, it's like when they say it's getting better in some aspects, they're just doing doublespeak in their own fashion. And with some people, they are legitimate about it, but then there's others that, well, they had some in their lives that had gone through and they kind of noticed it, and they experienced what was going on. Some sounds by experience, some it's artificial.
No, but see, that's the beauty of this kind of doublethink here, is that once you blur all the lines, you can customize this doublethink to fit anybody's agenda. So let's just say you are angry at one particular gender, and you don't ever want to get over that because you have this hyper anger at a particular gender. Well, that's natural because you've been conflicted. You know what I mean? You can embrace victimization from any angle you want to with this, right? So I don't know. It just seems to me as though when you look at stuff, like I said, with the bisphenol A, okay, with the sort of sterilization going on with the male population, right?
Yeah, with that, it's kind of more of a pipe-pong style type of deal when it comes to that, from what I've seen personally.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, everybody's your personal experience may vary, but it's still one of these things that is being pushed very heavily at this point, and to equate it to, and the other thing is, God forbid you say that not every gay person was born gay, you're in trouble. God forbid you say that not every person that is gender confused it was a term that used to be able to be used, right? I mean, yeah, look, I'm old enough. Right. I'm old enough that I remember that this was a special guest on Oprah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's still like that to some cases, but it's just being more portrayed in media to where like the examples I brought up earlier, they just do it just to do it as filler and get extra fame and just it brings up headlines.
Oh yeah, well that's the individual, celebrity, and of course they would seize upon anything, death rumors, molestation rumors. It doesn't matter if they're not getting the headlines, and therefore they're not pulling the bank the right way, out in the field. They'll do whatever it takes to get back out there. I know that. And that's fine. And of course, when Joan Rivers died, I remember thinking to myself, I was very surprised it didn't happen many years earlier, because she was starting to look strange. I mean, really strange for the past 20 years. But, you can only have so much plastic surgery before the human form is distorted. And she was there,
Yeah, I know another person that went through that pretty well as well. And you could probably agree with me, and this is pretty blatant. Sure.
Yeah, well, the only reason why I jumped to Joan Rivers is, of course, she was one of the first people that, when one of those paparazzi turned around and asked her a stupid question, like, when do you think we're going to have our first transgender president? And she turned around and said, well, we've already got one. We've already got a transgender first lady, so it's already done. That was pretty funny, especially considering, the videos. I know you've seen that video, right, with Michelle?
I've heard every one of them, and it's like, yeah, it leads it to debate. I will not go there at the second, but it's like, it's personal feelings, like if it is or if it isn't, but it's pretty possible with it.
I put it this way. I don't say that definitively, Michelle Obama's a man, but there's enough evidence that I can't dismiss it and say it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you there to where it's there enough, but yet, let you think what you feel on that one.
So how bad were they hating this in the chat room, by the way? Because I can't even open my browser at the moment, which I'm going to correct these problems very soon, by the way. I'm going to have another computer very soon, so this is no longer going to be an issue. I'm going to be able to read stuff better and everything on the air very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. But how bad were they hating in the chat room exactly?
I'm not sure. I was not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I could sit and scream about a bowl of stuff.
But yeah, with like how certain things like that have been done, it's like how a few topics I brought up with you in the past about similar cases in history, how it is used.
Yeah, I understand. But see, but here's the funny thing is that people think that I'm just like attacking those with what I used to call alternate lifestyles, but I guess that's politically incorrect anymore to say. Those out there who are non-cisgender like me. Those of you who are not part of the clearly male, female defined two gender, paradigm, I guess.
Okay, it's just
they think I'm attacking, and I'm not attacking. If anything, I'm just taking note of yet again we see, the reaction from many unnatural, many unnatural sources are causing an effect on the species, okay? We have increased cancer rates. We have increased autism rates. We have, way increased, Alzheimer's and all these brain diseases, right? We have higher levels of many more diseases, social ills of all sorts.
Yes.
People often say, well, the world's out of control. There's many, many more perverts out there. There's all this, but it's true.
Okay? I know it is true with certain things. I would agree. It's like how certain pedophilia leads to more gay on some things, but I will not go there. There is a good.
Now, see, even back in the day, that was an issue. You couldn't equate the two. I'm not even necessarily going to equate the two. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
that that look, there's definitely a greater level of this stuff in the population. There's a greater deviation from what was standard. How about that? Okay,
Yeah, I agree
regarding
with you.
sexuality. And if you don't think the all the hormones that were introduced into the food supply had something to do with it, give me a break.
Yeah, that's a grain in the bucket to what.
Well, yeah, but it's the easier to understand thing, right? Because
it's okay. Let me put to the percentage of like how much that stuff has had effect and what has been done okay, food like that would probably equate 5 to 25. I'm being very generous with this number, so don't quote me if that off of what I've seen over the years. And with the other medical products that have had hormones affecting, there is like how all that passes through the body, probably about 50 to 60 right there, and then there's just natural ebbs and flows after a little love. But even that's like 10 to 15% right there, right?
Well, see, percentages aside, look, we can lay it out pretty logically, okay? There was an increase in my generation that started, but it's really gotten a whole lot more prominent now, like, with the different methods of birth control, the different chemical methods of birth control, right? They're being introduced to younger and younger females, okay, who are still in the process of developing. You can't tell me that this type of stuff doesn't cause some sort of residual effect.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't. I'd say it probably has some magnified effects.
Well, right, and that's the way the general stream of things. It seems to me as though, there's been a social and a chemical neutering of the male side of the equation. Okay, which obviously leads to the less masculine thinking, the less masculine behavior, et cetera, et cetera. We've heard about this for years, right? But in addition to that, there is a hypersexualization of the female population, in my opinion. Not only on a social level. I mean, you got to do your slut walks now. You gotta embrace the idea that.
With the hypersexualization, I do agree, but it goes both ways with it, to where it's like you either are or not, and you can't fit in between, to where most guys don't feel they're in between. It's like how a lot of the paradigm is used on people.
Well, yeah, there is a pressure to either, and I could never quite get this across. I guess personally, because I don't know exactly how to put it in context. And I mean, the psychology that I was studying, 25 years ago is irrelevant at this point because it's all changed, But there was sort of this thing going on where. You kind of ended up having to sort of pick a side on the proverbial fence, right? You either had to, be the manliest of man, which generally that's why I was talking about the false tribalism earlier, because that's part of it,
Yeah, it's still there, but it's a little bit different in some cases. It's like they have to. It's like the guy has to play a little bit of both sides, but yet he plays more dominant in his side. He just muses the other.
Yeah. Well, it's an effective toy, But the funniest thing is usually the manly men I've ever known usually have a wife or a mommy that if they say boo, they go running before they even finish the sentence. But. Which they're usually very female dominated, which I think is part of the equation as well. Because look, either way, you have an immature male being developed here. You have one that's either reaching in the extreme for the masculine, or being so passive, being so uncharacteristically anti-masculine that they become sort of a non-entity in this way. So
to where they kind of fall to the wayside and they question themselves.
Right. And it leaves all of us in between guys, which I don't see that many of us anymore, as really kind of lost. Because, I've often said, and I've joked that, look, when I was growing up, it was impossible to know whether you should open a door for a woman or whether you should, do any of these minor chivalrous sort of acts or whatever, because you weren't sure if you were going to get kissed or smacked. Because after all, don't open a door for me. I can open it my damn self. I can pay my own meal. And then at the same time, there was some that expected.
The minefield in itself, the personas and the magnifications in every person is different nowadays. And let's just say, more instillings that I'm seeing nowadays are going to lead up to some very interesting, to where they're going to be going back to some older paradigms that you probably see more often.
That's what I thought, maybe a decade ago or a decade and a half ago. I thought that, this was going to create the sort of anti-rebellious rebellion among the youth, that we'd see much more conservative, family values-based kids, because my generation was so ridiculously into its debaucheries that that they would sort of snap back against that, and it would be like, it would be cool to stay in school, like, there's no standards anymore. We're going to bring standards back. That's our rebellion. I was extremely wrong, because I don't see that happening anytime
soon. There's more to that I will let you know with the schooling as an example. I'm going to just bring up and beat that horse for 1 second.
Yeah, sure, why not? Because that is the weirdest thing now is watching this stuff in the government indoctrination centers. It's getting really weird now.
Okay, it's like with the indoctrination centers, as you put, the indoctrination is getting ineffective, which leaves kids insatisfied, so they go in their own direction, and they go to people that of our sorts, or look for themselves, and they find out their own information. That's where, and it leaves the teachers and the school in itself with a void, to where more kids will probably, and I'm gonna probably say you probably have seen this, kids more getting their GED type crap, and then they'll just pass on and just do it. They need to get into certain more forms of brainwashing and other fashions, but yet, or some honesty in some things, depending on how it goes.
So you think the institution of the schools and the social construct that grows up around it is losing power, I guess.
Well,
that's what you figure.
It's losing power in some senses, but yet with depending on how the family structures. If the family structure is very loose and not very solid like that, then that structure loses power over people very fast.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The family is here I go sounding like one of these conservative talk show guys again. I kind of bend my head to the side like a dog that just heard a noise he never heard before. But yeah, I got to say, all right, well, look, if the family units are no longer intact, I mean, there is no family unit anymore, and this has been done by design because, there's no way for one parent to stay home while the other one works. It's economically not viable. So you don't have the direct intervention of the parents anymore.
For certain types of families, I'm going to bring ethnicity in this just for 1 second as well, to where it works a little different for each, but yet the construct works out a little bit different. It's like with some families, I know with Asians, for example. Let's say if you get...
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah, dude. What's up?
Roger left. I'm on break for another minute. Is there any way we can get you in?
I'm on the air, and I have no idea how to add it together. I tried 3 different ways, so I gave up, so I wouldn't keep interrupting your show.
Sorry.
No problem. I'm over here having a discussion about sexuality, so I don't know what to tell you for that second half because I can't quite get in there.
Yeah, I'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I don't know. I mean, if you can figure out a way to add me into that conversation while I keep this going, then fine, but I couldn't just leave dead air over here. So.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand. All right. See you guys.
All right.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was trying to simulcast with Dylan because we were going to do this thing over there with CJ Mars, but it didn't work out right. I don't know what the problem was, but I couldn't seem to get myself and the network on there. So, there you go.
Probably he'd have to host a call on his end, maybe.
Yeah, I tried that, and it just didn't work. So, yeah.
But,
anyway, back to where we were.
But yeah, to where it's like saying certain family constructs, like how I was saying with certain Asian families. Let's just say if you don't meet our standards, they'll give you a good beating at home. That's pretty.
See, that's the thing. There are cultural differences that cause, the family structures in America to be slightly less devolved, as it were, slightly less chaotic. But as time goes on, right, you end up with pretty much the same mess. And so it's like, what is the order out of chaos going to be here regarding this? I mean, I often wonder that. And like I said, I watched it develop. I mean, my generation, there was the high divorce rates and all that kind of stuff. And okay, fine. But that hasn't changed. It hasn't gotten any better in general. Like I said, there are certain pockets culturally that don't tolerate this stuff as much. But they're generally seen as sort of backwards and, of course, unsupportive of women's rights and things like this. Which I by no means am unsupportive of women's rights in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, I think they're an absolutely essential part of the society that wields power, whether you want to admit it or not. None of us is going to go and be Fred Flintstone. It ain't going to happen. So
Each is their own when it wields power when it comes to that.
And I wouldn't want it that way because it doesn't do any good. Putting women in charge of everything, which, is also a politically correct thing to say, is that, pretty much if a woman ran the world or if a woman ran the country, we'd be better off. And, of course, the counter comedic comment is always, well, every 28 days we'd have some tense negotiations. But the thing is, and I know that was a bad joke, but the thing to me is that it's absolutely essential that both sides of the equation are represented, whereas it regards anything of significant value, whether it's the family, it's, a functional government, which I don't see any at this point in time. But theoretically, if there were a functional government, it would require the input of the masculine and the feminine, in my opinion, because, both things are what makes the human race the human race. And, but this blurring of the lines and these, 27 different possibilities for gender and everything else, it gets a little odd to me, man. I mean, maybe it's just, I'm becoming too much of an old man. I don't know, but
27 little things. If you don't mind, if I chop in for a second.
No, go right.
Yeah, it can't. Those chopping it into 27 and all. They're like subcategories of just one umbrella in itself, or one of 4 umbrellas I'd probably put all together.
Okay, what are those umbrellas?
Okay, there's like your basic male and female with the 2 umbrellas. And then...
Okay, so you have male and female, gay and straight. There's 4 umbrellas right there.
Not quite.
Well, I'm just saying, that's four different categories, right?
Okay, but
and then you got to add 2 more. Okay, I'm trying to break it down. So you got to add 2 more for bisexual, right? So that becomes 6 umbrellas.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's what I was going to say, to where all 4 can work off each other. Okay. One's dealing with the body itself, and then one dealing with the binding itself. There's interesting constructs between those 4, but it's like, if you look at the degrees, how that works, it works into everything what you...
Okay, so we've talked about the body itself, we've talked about the actions or the proclivities, right? But then you get into, there's the, male who wants to be female, female who wants to be male. So I guess now we're up to 8 umbrellas.
That's more under the mind. Yeah, when it comes to that. But yes.
Yeah, but they argue that that's a physiological condition, right?
From what I've seen over the years, it's still seen as more mind.
Well, I remember most famously, when Pete Townsend came out and made some sort of statement about how he was a woman trapped in a man's body. The guitarist from The Who, yes, believe it or not, he actually did make that statement publicly at one point. I just thought to myself, well, he just must have gotten himself some radioactive weed, and what can you say? But no, this is something, like I said, that was the special guest on Oprah. They were talking about, what the tortures were to be trapped in the wrong body and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But see, we're only up to 8 umbrellas, okay? Where do the other ones even come in is always my question.
Yeah, that leans more towards the mind and preferences, as I mentioned, to where it's like someone that doesn't really want to have sex is like the pansexual, to where they want to have sex, but yet they have too much. There's a whole subset of things that go with that.
See, pansexual was described to me as something that sounded a whole lot more like bisexual.
Because pan can be either way, to where they're not interested in either gender. They just go wherever floats around.
Yeah, but see, now isn't that bisexual?
Well, yeah, it can work under anything. That's why I have it under mind, because it can work under any one of the umbrellas itself.
Oh, okay. But see, but where do you go from here where anything else is actually distinctive after that, in my estimation, is what the question is. And even with this, like I say, the further that you convolute the thing, I mean, after a while, is there a particular, is it a gender sensitive group to say that, yeah, I'm a guy who likes girls, but but I only like Asian chicks. Does that mean that I am now Asia heterocentric? What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, does it really have?
Guy that likes Asian chicks. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's what I figured, but that's that's my undeveloped and politically incorrect way of looking at it. So I'm thinking to myself that this could be a whole gender category in and of itself, right? Why not?
No, to where there is lines even then within in the community itself. I've seen.
Yeah, but see, how is that any less or more valid? You know what I'm getting at here?
It's like the lines they're blurry, but they're solid in like a grayscale.
Yeah, but they're not, because everything is so completely convoluted at this point. It's like,
Yeah, I know. It's like up is down and black is white. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
No, see, I wish it was that simple. If up was down and black was white, at least there would be some parameters you could work from.
It's why I was saying with black is white within the gray scaling of itself.
Well, see now, there you go, Hector. That's some double think for you right there. Because black cannot be gray, and nor can white. Okay,
Yeah.
although gray doesn't exist without the two, right? So here's your problem. If it's black is white and white is black within the grayscale, then aren't we still just dealing with the grayscale? You see, it becomes extraneous to go through that. So that's why I'm saying when you got these 8 umbrellas, right, that I'll turn back to, like where is it to go significantly from there? And then I even saw a clip passed me by. I think her name is Raven Simone. Yeah, she. I think that was what her name was, or something like this. And attractive girl and all that. But she made a statement about not wanting to be described by her gender, or sexuality, or race, which, on the one hand, it makes sense, but on the other hand, it just feels as though it's feeding into this lack of identity. And I think that although race and sexual proclivity don't necessarily have to be the thing that defines you, it does seem to me as though your born sexuality is a defining factor. I mean, look, some people are born strong, some people are born weak, some people are born tall, some people are born short, and it definitely, the way that you are born does dictate how your life will develop, unless we completely warp all the rules,
Let's just say the rules can be warped inside out or inside out with, a half twist in itself anymore.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that, but where is the line essentially? And getting back to that whole thing about simply declaring yourself transgendered and therefore attaching yourself to certain rights. I mean, again, I would say that personally, if I were somebody who actually felt as though I was the wrong gender trapped in the wrong body, or whatever, however that gets put, I would be personally offended by the idea that there only needs to be a declaration, that this can be utilized for all sorts of, ridiculous purposes. Like I said, I mean, tell adolescent boys that all they have to do is say that they are transgendered and they can end up in the locker room with the girls. I think after a little while, you won't need to keep the boys' locker room open anymore unless you really want to keep the janitor busy dusting away cobwebs.
Yeah, unless the boys would be wearing Pampers in some cases.
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah, no, it's just like if they try to drag them in one way, they'll drag them all the way and they'll run out. It's like.
But does that also mean that every single sexual proclivity, whether you view it as no matter how you view it, should all be encouraged? See, this is what, and I know this again sounds like the typical right wing talk show guy thing again, but I'm sorry. The fact is this to me, that if you say that this is all okay, and that this is all sensible and it's all part of nature, then what's to say that, those guys that are, say, into infantilism, okay? You know what I'm talking about, too, right? These guys that actually want to wear diapers. Because you brought up diapers, so it's your fault. These guys...
Oh, yeah, I knew I stepped on that one time. I figured you were going to use that.
Yeah, because I'm a jerk like that, but...
It's not too bad, but yeah, when it comes...
Yeah, I have to. The thing is, these guys, they like to wear diapers, and they like to be treated as babies, okay? Is that now a gender? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is to really say that is less legitimate? Because that is their urge. That's the way they were born,
It's not exactly a body sense, but it's a mind sense with that one.
Well, yeah, but there you go. So how is that any less legitimate than saying, that you're, I mean, and I guess there's the camp out there that's undeclared, which you seem to think is the pansexual, but That used to be.
There's more in the undeclared than you think, but it's like...
Yeah, see, that used to be called asexual.
Yeah.
Okay, which, meant that you basically didn't have an urge to couple with anybody.
Yeah, it's still there, but it's...
Yeah, but see, that is one of those things that, again, occurs in a low amount among people. But you notice there's not a great embrace of that. Where's the asexual's rights? I mean, somebody who basically doesn't have a sexuality. And how does that sound to people? Does that sound like it's, part of the typical, strain of human being at this point?
I've seen some of that recently in town here, so
now wait a minute. Are you saying that you saw cross-dressers that were just so confusing to look at, you couldn't tell what they were? Because I see them everywhere.
Oh, no, not that. I mean asexual, that to where he was announcing a statement with certain things, similar to what you were talking about.
Okay. And see, now that to me is even more odd, but that's an emotional reaction. And again, I don't think that anybody should be treated differently for being that way either. But these kids, I mean, and I've talked to my kids, and I've talked to some of their friends and things, and I find that they're under this impression that pretty much gay people and transgendered people are being burned at the stake all over the world.
Not really, but this depends on the place.
No, but look, they still kill albinos in Africa too. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is something that happens all over the world, and that
it's not over, but it's around enough to where it's being propagated to use in its own favors with some subsections of our populace.
Yeah, see, at the end of the day, though, what is it? It's propaganda to support the concept of the victim culture. It makes it a hot button issue so that if you even discuss this, you're absolutely ostracized. I'm going over this because it's just something that occupies my mind from time to time, and I lost what I was going to try and do tonight. So, voila, you guys get a surprise, and probably are very, very bored listening to this, but appreciate it if you still are. But it just seems to me, and I'm just threshing this out, man. I'm not even saying I have all the answers. But then again, for those of us who do understand that our nature as human beings has been tampered with extensively, who realize that the absolute essentials of life have been tampered with for various agendas, who realize that disease has been introduced into the population, who realize that psychological elements of really destructive sorts of thought processes have been introduced to the population for the sole purpose of contaminating the population. If you take a step back emotionally and you think about, the sort of warping of the sexes as opposed to the war of the sexes, how does this not fit with their agenda as well? I think it does.
Yeah, no, there's certain events that have led to, even, I'm going to step off on some other footing with the certain how chemical weaponization works, but even then.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look, and as they have improved the mechanism of the media, and as they've improved the mechanism of the GMOs and all this stuff, I mean, they've also improved the sort of social contamination, I would call it, of the population to just sort of just dissuade them from being their natural selves in one way or another. And I mean, don't think for yourself. There are no rules, and in a way, I can see how that's sort of valuable to consider. But after a while, as much as you may not want to eat too much, you're not going to stop eating unless you really plan on dying, or you're incapable of doing so. And it seems to me as though that the desire to survive, the desire to procreate, the desire to breathe, and all these things are innate natural qualities of the human species, and they have literally gone after all of them, in my estimation. And to see that there has been some manipulation regarding breeding among the population. I mean, there's plenty of countries that are showing declines in birth rates, hyper sterilizations, of course, in more places where there's plenty of Monsanto crops to go around.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm saying is, nobody wants to take this part of the agenda and think about it. It seems to me.
Yeah, to where it's it's like a murky swamp in itself, and it's not too many people have headed out this direction because of some certain events. They always end up climbing up about it.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, but the other thing is that there is, a serious bullying squad that will jump on you. I mean, if I was a bigger name, if I was a bigger name talk show host, this show probably would have gotten yanked off of the air, after 15 minutes, because it would have been too fiery, too ridiculous, and I'd probably have protests outside, So nobody can even touch this if this is the way they think about it, unless they're conservative. But then they can just basically tell you that it's wrong. And that's as far as they go. And I'm not even saying that it's wrong. What I'm saying is that it's being promoted and propagated to have a detrimental effect, And I'm not placing the guilt on the individuals that are experiencing this. I'm placing the guilt again. You don't blame the autistic kid for getting damaged from the vaccine. It's not his fault. This is what I'm seeing, and of course, that's another thing you get hit with is, you can't say that this is some sort of deviation from the normal. And God help me if I use the word normal, because hell, I don't even want to be called normal. But you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, it's like certain parts of apathy are used in this construct, to where how certain agendas can be used and abused in their own fashion.
Oh yeah, I hear you there, but it's just I don't know. It's just one of those things that I don't think a lot of people consider. They never put it into the equation regarding this stuff, and it just is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like most of them don't pull together certain ideas and constructs, but it's like a big construct in itself. It's like as seeing as to actually seeing ether, and if you get what I mean.
Well, no, I didn't understand that. Could you explain that to me?
Well, it's like a normal person seeing ether, or as the energy around us, how certain things move, but yet not seeing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've described this before. I mean, I see things that they tell me are just, sort of reactions to light because of an oversensitivity and everything else. But the thing is, I can literally see the energy of a living thing. Not in a major way. It's not like everything that lives walks around beaming at me all day, but I can actually see this stuff, and don't know exactly where to put it as far as what it is I'm actually seeing. I won't make a definitive statement about it, but I would say that it just appears to be the energy of that which is life. And it is partially due to the fact that I'm seeing things on a slightly different spectrum and all that. And so I can actually understand that from a first-hand kind of perspective.
Yeah, I just figure it's something a little bit more late to you. I can give a perfect example to relay the type of how it's used.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I don't know, man. And at the end of the day, like I said, and I'm trying to put all my gut reactions behind, but I can't because it's incongruous with me. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, to me, it's like looking at somebody who, okay, this is going to sound real messed up, but I'm going to do it anyway. Anorexic people, right? You notice you don't hear too much about anorexia anymore.
I hear about more in this town than anything, but
yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I do forget.
I get what you mean, but yeah.
I do forget. You are where you are. So, I mean, certain things are normal there that are not normal in a lot of other places, and I get it. And here I go again using that word normal. Sorry. But, yeah, definitely I understand it's a different culture there. But anorexia, right, was this big deal for a bit. And it seems, again, counterintuitive. The anorexic doesn't want to die, but yet they won't eat because of this psychological fixation they have, et cetera, right?
I can understand that construct pretty well.
Right, but then, of course, that produced the discussions about stuff like bulimia, and there are people that, will eat, but then they'll throw up, and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But nobody ever says that this is like part of the acceptable. You know what I mean? And it's all, well, that's because it's destructive, and being who you are isn't destructive. But who's to say that that's not being who they are? And they're really just shortening their lifespan because that's who they are anyway. You know what I mean? If you take it to its logical conclusions.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Where that can be, it's its own paradigm in itself. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm not even trying to do the whole, and God said only a man and woman can get married. And I don't go for all that.
Yeah, it's like.
But yet they throw you right in that camp if you even begin to question why this is becoming so prevalent. Or, because even look at your mainstream, like, okay, again, I stopped watching TV a while ago, but I was noticing that every single television show had to have, it seemed to me, though, it had to have, gay elements constantly introduced into it. It seems to be part of the new normal, regarding this. Right?
Because they can play it up as a psychological factor with the sympathy factor, or throw a wild card in.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is that
and in the end of the day, it gets ratings.
But it's to over normalize the situation because look, it's an over exaggerated representation of the truth about what's in the population. But it's at a point now where and I'm telling you that these kids have this belief that there was just a whole lot more of this before. The only reason why we didn't see it is because it was suppressed, and that's all there is to it. Now there may be some truth to that, but I think it's also being overrepresented now.
Yeah, it's actually a duality. Yeah, where certain things and certain aspects of it, were coming to light a little bit too much, and some of it's just being used for other agendas.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like the funny stuff that comes up once in a while, and here I go back to a really bad subject, but the fact is that cultural diversity is represented, in commercials and television shows to an extreme as well, in a lot of cases.
Yes, right? It goes into targeted advertising.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta laugh because I mean, you see certain things going on where you're like, culturally, that makes zero sense, whatsoever. I mean,
Yeah, even then, even to that culture, it looks laughable. Even to that.
yeah, I mean, and even in your 30 or 60-second commercial spots, even for fast food chains, right? At McDonald's, there always has to be the representative. Here's your token white guy. Here's your token black guy. Here's your token undetermined racial person that you can't quite figure out right away, but there's some kind of brown, so they're in there. And even an Asian now is necessary, and it doesn't matter where it airs. Now, I used to find it equally funny that like the BETs of the world and stuff like that would show commercials that were just like the other commercials, except there were no white people in a lot of their commercials, except on the much larger corporate sponsors. They had to put up with the white people in the commercials. So I always found that kind of funny.
There's some even funnier, but stepping back onto something that did a lot of normalizing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably one show that I could think of that probably made that a lot more mainstream, and it actually has its own place in its own way.
What's that?
Oh God, it was very popularized around 2000. You probably heard the name.
Probably. I mean, I go back to even the sort of what was it, like, shock and awe of it in the 90s when the Roseanne Barr show had gay characters on it, and this was like a big deal. Now it's almost like you can't get a TV show made unless you have at least one gay character. Any of the sitcoms require.
Yes, it was a sitcom for what I was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh God, I think wasn't me. Oh God, it was the guy that usually kept his head bald on the show.
Guy who kept his head bald. That could be a lot of guys, man.
Meet Raymond or something like that.
Oh, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yes, that construct where that was one.
I don't remember them. You know what? I can't recall them having a gay character. There was a gay character on there?
I think it was either that or just one of the main characters was gay fully, and one of the roommates was normalizing it in that fashion.
Huh. I don't remember it on that TV show, and I did watch some of that back then. So I mean, I was kind of aware of that, but I don't remember that, to be honest with you.
It's like the Friend syndrome for that series. I'm not mentioning anymore.
Well, okay, but okay. Nowadays, you even have your and I see the memes about this all the time, so I'm pretty sure about what I'm about to say, even though I've never watched an episode of the show. That show, Modern Family.
Oh, Modern Family.
Pretty much bends and breaks all of the old school kind of rules regarding all this, right?
It throws all the constructs in the washing machine, then just lets it roll for a few minutes, then plays with them.
Oh, right. I mean, let's see. Okay. Now, previous to the Roseanne thing, I do remember that Married with Children had no. I don't think there was a gay character on there, but one of the people that was a main character on there, her name was Marcy or something like that. I think she was gay. In real life, though.
Yeah, as an actress, yeah.
Yeah.
But you want to know what actually ended up happening about that after a lot of contracts from them?
What happened?
A lot of them dried up and they were just thrown to the wayside.
Yeah, well, that's what happens after the curiosity's gone. I mean, I'm really seriously surprised that Ellen DeGeneres still has a career. So
yeah, There's also certain constructs within there. It's like if they find out you're transgender, they throw you out of Hollywood real fast.
Really? I wasn't aware of that. I thought that would be embraced out there. I mean,
in some cases, yes. Some cases, no. It just depends how quiet it is.
huh. Yeah, and and I also remember it was a big deal about, what was it, Ricky Martin not wanting to declare his sexuality for a long time, right? Even though it was, sort of obvious. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I crack up from when I was a kid because, like, I was, a heavy metal fan, and Rob Halford from Judas Priest. I don't understand how people didn't think he was gay. Like quite literally the old school kind of parody of the gay man and the studded biker stuff and everything else. I mean, that was Rob Halford. How did you not know he was? And of course, that was kind of kept secret for a long time. And then,
some people notice it, some just don't really notice and just don't really give a care.
Yeah, like and 5 minutes, and I loved Freddie Mercury as a vocalist, man. But 5 minutes watching him on the stage, how did you not know where he was at? I mean,
well, it depends on the person and how thick their skin is on some things.
I remember being a little kid and going, well, I have some questions about it, and I watched him on stage, and I said, well, I don't have too many questions anymore. And I said, well, it's kind of funny because there's still people debating as to whether he is or isn't. And a stepfather I had at the time looked at me and he said, look, Chuck, the name of the band is Queen, for God's sake.
Yeah, that'll answer your question right there with a lot of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. And I said, well, okay, you got me there, boss. What can I say? But either way, I've got to say that I do think that this is one of those many, many cultural, spiritual, and biological weapons. We're watching the results of it regarding the sort of deconstruction of sexuality in general. And it's a topic that I was hoping that someday I would cover with somebody who had done more research on it. And there are people that actually do research this kind of stuff, but it doesn't get much attention in alternative or mainstream.
I know a lot of, like, I hate to use reference to authority with this one, but certain psychologists here in town do specialize in that, and that are very good too.
Yeah. Well, and that was another controversy some years ago, which I find to be a non-controversy because, if you're going to put your trust into the psychiatric industry to do anything for you, there's your problem to begin with. So we don't have to continue on with the conversation.
Yeah.
But there was a time when it was a big controversy and still comes up now. People making references to it about like trying to turn younger people straight and psychologically treating them that way. But then again, there's the over exaggeration and the abundance of support that comes from some people too, right? So psychology has kind of played both sides of the fence on this, and the psychiatric industry has as well. At this point, though, they have to embrace it, and it is what it is now.
From my scene, it still plays both sides of the fence, even if it's quietly and publicly.
Really?
Well, it's like here in town, it's like they still play up the construct from anything from California. They still play up the anti-gay electroshock therapy type stuff still. They still play that up here.
Well, see, shock therapy,
I know.
Yes. ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, is just barbaric, and
yes,
I can't see it's useful for anything.
Yeah. I know, and personally, I think it's probably one of the most barbaric things I've seen out of psychology.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Well, it's like...
Thank you, Operation Paperclip.
Well, here's one thing that you probably know this a little bit, may not know this, but with being gay or anything like that, you don't know it used to be considered a mental illness and you used to be institutionalized, but you've seen the experiments with that, so...
Well, yeah, and for it to be a mental illness, again, I guess it could be at some points. Listen, it's not necessarily, harmful to pretend you're George Washington. But if you really believe you're George Washington, that's a problem, right? So I can almost see the argument for it being a psychological illness.
Yeah, where it is still considered that to some extent, but yet it's more just under more of a mind physical, but yet unless it's certain chemical physical. Okay.
Well, and anybody that's practicing under that premise would definitely have to keep it quiet at this point, because there is no way that the public collective bullying from the so-called progressives would not end if you came out, especially if you were one of those on high psychiatrists that we all should know, love, and trust. And you came out and made that kind of statement. I mean, they might very well lynch somebody like that.
There is some in that field that I will not mention names, but they're out there. But usually they get a death threat a week, and it's like they go by with their life as usual with some things. And sometimes these psychologists are the ones that usually serve some clientele that you usually find work up a little bit higher up in the food chain for certain things.
Well, anybody that experiments, with their patients is obviously rewarded. Yeah. We don't have to go too far back in history to remember that we had the whole MK search thing revealed, and
I'm gonna put a simple contract with that, where it's like Hitler's doctor was probably the best variation of that, put simply.
Well, yeah, but all those guys, modern psychology is heavily based on the stuff that was learned in that wonderful laboratory that we now refer to historically as the Third Reich.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Absolutely, and
that type of experimentation still goes on, which I just find sad.
Right, but I mean, if you think there hasn't been, something decided regarding, look, if you make the population this way, they'll be, weaker for it. In general, it is true. So I do think that this is definitely one of the weapons that has not really been revealed to even those who are awake regarding the situation. You know what? I could be altogether wrong, and I would love to have somebody explain to me how wrong I am. I would hope to be wrong, because, watching the downward spiral here, it seems as though the species is being attacked on every single front possible. And, I'd like to think that this was a natural occurrence and this is the way things are supposed to be, but it just seems counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, some parts of it are, but some of it's just by accident with certain things, but yet some of it's on purpose. I'll leave it at that for my personal taste.
Yeah, well, hey, we all have our views, I guess, and I guess this is one of my my ugly ones that I usually keep in the drawer and don't bother to take out to play and bring to show and tell. But why not? I figured I got nothing else. We'll wing it with this tonight and just kind of discuss it. And I was hoping I'd get a little more crowd participation, but what am I going to do, right? It's Saturday night, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Sorry I wasn't too much of help in this type of chat, but I kind of know a few people that have went through some of this hate maker of some things, and I know what you mean, but I've also seen what happens at certain ends that were really happening.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying that it's all, all an affliction, which has been, given to us by the New World Order like everything else, but at the same time, I just think that the rapid increase in this stuff in the society is definitely something that is worth study, because after all, if this was being done by design, even if I'm half right, exactly how screwed up is that?
Well, yeah, it's being played up because also certain thing, like, well, I'm gonna bring something up that's in a similar fashion, but yet is a little bit different. You know, like how King and all that with like voting rights and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Certain gay couples and people, like with their when it comes to their rights with like their loved ones and all. Some of those rights are usually never really respected in that aspect, but yeah. But there's more to that than goes into other subjects, but
yeah. And look, by no means am I saying that that they deserve any less rights than anybody else, regardless of what their proclivity or choice of identity or identity in general is. This is not something that I consider this isn't right either. So under the old sort of ways of thinking, where individuals couldn't leave money to other individuals, you couldn't give somebody your insurance and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that that's fair either. But once you open up the floodgates, it leads you to those other logical questions. I mean, there was even that joke of a movie a couple of years ago where the two guys got married so that the one guy could have health insurance, right?
Oh yeah, that was certain things with that construct of the movie. Some of it was used to psychologically implant some bad ideas into something that really fits into a certain narrative. I'll leave it at that personally, but I know where the funding came from that movie, so yeah.
Yeah, but look, everything that comes out of Hollywood has all these hidden agendas and social program aspects. So, you could be describing any one of the last 1,000 movies that came out. It's fine.
Yeah, no. This one was to fit Blackstone and some incorporations, but yeah, a little bit more there.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, and the TV shows are all the same way. I mean, as much, and here's an admission, as much as I do kind of like the new Gotham series, I can also see the social programming happening,
Oh, yeah, it's where, let's just say, I know, it's like, how,
and I'm sorry, ever since I was a kid, I love Batman, so, I mean, to go back.
I know what you mean when it came to certain. I know I did like a certain Joker from the '90s type version, but yes, I do know that construct works up.
Oh, what's the matter? We didn't like the Nicholson Joker?
Oh, I do like all of them, but
look. Everybody says this, but from Mark Hamill to Heath Ledger to even Cesar Romero. I mean, hell, I liked them all for one reason or another, and always liked the Joker character myself.
Yeah, I liked each one of them in their own fashions, but a certain case of the Spielberg one just comes up in a interesting flair in its own fashion.
Well, which one are we talking about real quick? Because we're about to run out of time, so.
Oh, the Steven Spielberg Joker, that one. That one just more of like the plain insanity type of character that is funny in its own construct. But yeah.
Well, nothing was funnier than Heath Ledger's Joker. I don't care. I mean,
I agree. Naturally funny. Yeah.
he was actually the funniest and best Joker ever. And I know everybody says that, but it's true, man. You know,
I can agree with you there.
I mean, after I saw that movie, I mean, I swear to God, I was walking around to everybody I knew and doing the typical, stupid quotation thing that us guys like to do. And I was just, why so serious? I was definitely all about that. And,
yeah, and that's still used as a meme today.
yeah, and I'm telling you, man, definitely good flick, and of course, tons of all sorts of mind control stuff going on in that movie.
Oh, don't remind me. One of the actor that did the Joker died because of that mind control shit.
Yeah, well, quite possibly, and of course, don't pay any attention to the fact that he was, all sorts of well engrossed in his pharmaceuticals and all that. That.
I know those were as well.
But, oh man,
there are certain. Oh boy, what we stepped into a second.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but look. I got to thank you for calling in because at least you did. A couple other people messaged me but didn't want to call in, I guess. And I would have sat here and discussed anything, but I just continued on with my topic and, sort of stumbled and fumbled through it. Don't worry, I will get back to my guest format and all that kind of fun stuff. I was going to try and simulcast tonight with another network, but it just did not work out. So it is what it is. And, what do they got on after me now? Hal Anthony?
I think Hal and all, they've been playing up his stuff lately.
Okay, yeah, so definitely cool. If you're listening to this downstream for some reason. Oh, and a quick apology. I have no idea what happened with the MP3s. I tried to ask Jules about that today, and apparently they're okay on her end. I don't know what the problem is, and I even got a bad couple of downloads that only played 26 seconds of my show and stuff like that, and I don't know why. So go back and try and download them again, I guess. I don't know. So it is what it is, and man, I wish you had something to promote. I'd talk about it right about now.
Yeah, I don't. It's like, I just want people to live. And live to be themselves and just be yourself and just embrace love around you. That's all I wish for people.
You got it, brother. Live for yourself, think for yourself, and love for everybody else because it will all come back around to you, and it's all good that way. Definitely don't embrace your fears. This is the only positive message I can come up with anymore. It is what it is, man. So,
yeah.
Thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. I don't know what to tell you is coming up next. Obviously, on Tuesday, I'll do my usual Tuesday night with the Liberty Beacon, and we will be having some other guests coming up soon. Hopefully, Payday Monsanto gets back to me, because I want to have a serious talk with that gentleman. And it is what it is. So, anything you want to throw in at the end of your head?
Not much. Try to live in your own balance with
Well, exactly, man. Be part of the world. Don't fear it, and don't try to rule it. Just simply live your life because it's way, way too short to do anything else. And I guess that's about the size of that. And stay tuned to UCY.TV radio because there's always interesting stuff going on. And for those of you that can't sleep, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, something is being broadcast. And it's all interesting. Also, sent a message to Dane Wigginton. So my drunk stupid guy caller, just so you know, dude, I definitely sent a message to Dane this morning, and he still hasn't returned it. So we shall see what happens there regarding that situation. Plus, Roger Landry said he would reach out to him for me. So let's see what happens.
Webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
But I have the files. You know, I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, that guy, how can that be possible? The brain, you know, days and the fondle slab of choice, I don't know when that was, doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the cartoon comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't, it's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to have just reason.